everyone. Welcome to lesson 6.5. We're going to talk today about simplifying algebraic expressions. So the first thing you have to understand in order to simplify algebraic expressions is that you can only combine what we call like terms. So like terms have the same variable or variables with the same exponents. They can have different coefficients, they can have different signs, but they must have the same variables with the same exponents. Well, let's look at the one that's an example over here. 4x squared plus 3xy minus 14x plus 7xy plus x squared. So if I'm looking for like terms, same variable, same exponent. So first let's look here. A like variable for 4x squared would also need the same variable, same exponent, so it would be x squared. A like term for 3xy would be 7xy. Same variables, same exponent. There is no like term for negative 14x because nothing else has just an x. Let's try some more. Okay, we're going to go through and simplify each of these, taking careful time to look for things that are in common. So on the first one, I have 3/4 x plus 1/2 x. So both of these have the same variable with the same exponent. When I go to combine those like terms, I simply add their coefficients. So 3/4 plus 1/2. If I get a common denominator here, I'm adding 3/4 plus, I need to multiply this fraction by 2 top and bottom. So what I'm doing when I'm adding my like terms is that I'm adding the numbers in front of them. 3/4 plus 2/4 would give me 5/4, and then I bring my variable in. I don't need to change anything about my variable, so it just stays 5/4 x. For my second one that you see here, my like terms would be 5/6 x and 1/2 x. So the 5/6 x has the x written in the numerator with the 5. The second one has the x written, the negative 1/2 has the x written after it. It makes no difference. These still are the same variables with the same exponents. The 3 is not a like term, so I do not combine it. So I'm going to say 5/6 minus, to get this to have a common denominator, I'm going to have to multiply it times 3, 3/6. If you're wondering why you subtracted on this one, what you really did was 5/6 plus negative 3/6, because this negative was 1/2. This negative right here was with the 1/2. So you're really adding a negative number. When I put those together, I end up with 2/6, and I can reduce that by dividing by 2 on the top and bottom. So that would give me 1/3 x when I reduce the 2/6. And then I'm just going to leave this plus 3 alone and bring it down as part of my answer. I didn't add it to anything. For the next one, my like terms are this one and this one because they both have a y. This one does not have the same variable, so it's going to stay by itself. So what I'm doing here is adding 4.28 with 19.61 here, just adding the numbers in front. So 8 plus 1 is 9, 2 plus 6 is 8, 4 plus 9 is 13, carry my 1. So I end up with 23.89y minus 5.08x, because I combined the like terms for the y, but I could not combine them for the x. All right, let's clear the screen a little bit, give you some more room to see these next three. So again here, even though xy is written as part of the numerator, it doesn't matter. These are still like terms. So I'm saying 3/5 minus 4/3. When I look for a common denominator, it's 15. So that's going to give me the first fraction as 9 over 15. The second fraction I'm multiplying by 5, so that would give me 20 over 15. And remember, you're really saying plus the negative here, since this was a negative 4/3. 9 plus a negative 20 is like saying 20 take away 9. So that would give me negative 11 over 15. And I can put my xy back with my answer. Okay, the one in the middle here begins to get a little bit more complicated, because first I have to go through and distribute. We've done distributive property before. We have to go through and distribute this number that's in front of the parentheses. So I'm going to multiply it times the things that are inside the parentheses. Same thing on the other side. Then once I do that, I can combine like terms. So when I multiply here, I'm going to have 3/2 x plus, when I multiply here, I would have 15 over 12 minus 3/8 x, negative times the negatives, plus 6 over 72. Okay, so now let's look for our like terms. My like terms that I can combine are my x's here and here, and my numbers here and here. So let's go through some common denominators. That will take you a minute, but that's okay. So my common denominator for 2 and 8 is going to be 8. So I need to multiply this first one by 4. That's going to give me 12 over 8 plus negative 3 over 8. 12 minus 3, or 12 plus negative 3, would give me 9. So I'm going to end up with 9/8 x. That took care of my two green things that I needed to combine. I can reduce 6 over 72 to get a denominator of 12. If I divide both of those by 6, I get 1 over 12. So this is going to be 15 over 12 plus 1 over 12. That would give me 16 over 12, which I would want to reduce by dividing both of them by 4 to give me 4/3. So yes, there was some fraction work on this one, but there was, excuse me, nothing you haven't done before. You've done distributive property, multiplying it out. And now we've done combining like terms with it. Okay. Clear the board here one more time for this one. This is the same thing, only instead of having fractions, we've got decimals. So I begin by multiplying the 3.2 times both things in the first parentheses and the 0.23 times both things in the second parentheses. All I'm doing is multiplying it out first, just like I did with the fraction. So when I multiply 3.2 times x, I'm going to get 3.2x. And then I multiply 3.2 times that negative 4.5, which will give me negative 14.4. And feel free to multiply it out on your own if you need to show your work on that. And then I'm going to multiply now the 0.23 times both things in that parentheses. So first multiply it times 11, which will give me 2.53x. And then I have to multiply that 0.23 times 12, which will give me 2.76. Okay, now I need to combine like terms. My two x's are like terms, and my two numbers are like terms. So 3.2 plus 2.53 would give me 5.73x. Then I have negative 14.4 plus 2.76. So be careful there with your signs. That's a place where we make a mistake. Be super careful there with your signs. Negative 14.4 plus 2.76, you're subtracting, and your answer is going to be negative 11.64. Here's a place that a lot of people will make a mistake on this problem. They'll get to this step, they'll have done an excellent job distributing and combining like terms, and then all of a sudden what they'll do is that they'll try to go ahead and combine these two things, and they'll come up with like a negative 7, 5, 6, something like that. But look, one thing has an x and one thing does not have an x. So I cannot put those two things together. I'm finished now. All right, let's look at our book examples for these. For the first one, 1/6 x plus 2/3 x. Again, all I'm doing is adding the coefficients together. So I end up with 1/6. Gotta have a common denominator of 6. So I'm going to multiply both of those by 2. Plus 4/6 should give me 5/6 x for this first one. For the second one, they're both like terms with the y, so I'm adding together what's in front of the y's. So 7.2 plus 5.29 would give me 12.49 y. All I did was add together what was in front. For the third one, you can see I have different terms. So I'm going to add together 2/3 x and the 8x because both of those have the same variable of x with the same exponent. Then I'm going to add together the 9y and the 5y because both of those have the same variable with the same exponent. So when I go to add together the 2/3 and the 8, I end up with 8 and 2/3. It's probably easier to turn this 8 2/3 into an improper fraction. So we said we do that. 3 times 8 is 24, plus 2 more would give me 26 over 3x. Then for the y's, 9 plus 5 would give me 14 y's. 9 plus 5 would give me 14 y's. Okay. All right, for the next set, you can see that I have a 5x squared and an 8x squared that can be combined together. And then I have, oops, in the book problem, it should have had a minus 2/3 x here. I don't know how I ended up missing that part, but we'll add it in here. Okay, which means I have a negative 1/4 x and a negative 2/3 x that can be combined together as well. So for my x squareds, 5x squared plus 8x squared is going to give me 13x squared. Be careful, that's not 13x to the 4th. Remember, we're adding together the numbers in front, and we're just keeping the variables the way that they are. For my x's, I have negative 1/4 and negative 2/3. Common denominator for those would be 12. So I'm going to end up with negative 3/12 minus 8/12. So when I go to put those together, negative 3 minus 8 would give me negative 11 over 12. Now I put my variable back, x. And then there's nothing else like the 6. So it just comes along with the ride here and makes it plus 6. Okay, let's clear the board for these. For the next one, be careful, it's kind of tricky. You have x squared y here and x squared y here. So those two are like terms. And then you have xy here and xy here. So those will be like terms as well. So I'm first going to start putting my x squared y's together. So I'm going to say 11.2 take away or plus negative 3.02, which will give me 8.18 x squared y. And then for the other one, I'm saying 7.54 minus, and be careful here, remember if there's no number written in front, there's really a 1 there that we can't see. So that's like 7.54 minus 1, which will give me 6.54 xy. Okay, the last one's a little bit tricky here. Let me first tell you one easy way to set up this problem. If I'm multiplying a fraction times a whole number, it may be easier to turn this whole number into a fraction first and then multiply. The way that you do that is to put it over 1. So that's often a good place to start. So when I multiply 2x times 4y, I'm going to get 8xy. And then on the bottom, 3y times 1 will give me 3y. And then for the second one, 2x times 3xy. So 2 times 3 is 6. X times x is x squared. Y over, on the bottom, 3 times 1, 3y. Okay. At this point, you would have to go through and simplify your fractions. So you can see that I have a y on top and a y on bottom. Remember, we can cancel those. And same thing over here, y on top, y on bottom. So we can cancel those. And then ask yourself, can you reduce 8x over 3? And you cannot. So that will just stay 8x over 3. And then can you reduce 6x squared over 3? You can reduce those. X squared will still stay there, but 6 divided by 3 would give you 2x squared. And that's your final answer for this one. Guys, you will continue to see simplifying and combining like terms through Algebra 1 and through Algebra 2. So take your time and make sure you feel very confident with these.